veteran journalist, legislator, entrepreneur and development consultant, and Ramadan Gobi, an economist and university don.
I've really got perturbed that in Uganda we are building parties with no membership subscription.
All on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
A warm welcome this evening and welcome to this edition of Behind the Headlines this Wednesday, the 4th of August 2021. The guests are already sat and we are only now going to start the discussion. We are going to be taking a look today at the state of trade, industry and commerce post the second lockdown, 42 days that ended on Friday, and for those days you could say that business completely went under, interactions, of course, to enforce the standard operating procedures when we got terrible knocks from the second wave. Many people died, a lot of destruction to the economy, and trade could not take place normally as it should be. And the economy is therefore hit. We are going to be looking at, can that knock be reversed? Can we rejuvenate or reverse the spoils? Can we get on a better path from now on? And how do we do that? To discuss all that, we have, starting from my extreme left, we have Professor Waiswa Balonywa, and he is the principal of Makerere University Business School. The first time you are joining us on this show, Professor, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, and good evening, viewers.
And I must admit that I've always looked forward to you coming to explain the economics and its tidbits, and I'm glad that you had time to come.
I appreciate the invitation.
We appreciate too. Next to Professor is Francis Kisirinya. Kisirinya is the acting executive director of the Private Sector Foundation Uganda. Francis, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
You made an appearance too, right?
Yes, sir.
But we have had a number of people from private sector, so you are in a comfortable zone.
Thank you very much.
Next to Francis is our panelist, and last week she was missing in action. Council Sarah Birete. Sarah is the executive director of the Center for Constitutional Governance, CCG. Sarah, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, viewers. Good
to have you back. And finally, in the studio, we have Honourable Mwine Mpaka. Honourable Mwine Mpaka is the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Trade, Industry and Tourism, but he also happens to be the MP for Mbarara City South. Mwine, in the last parliament, represented the youth of Western Uganda, and now he has, for lack of a better word, matured into a mature constituency.
Are you trying to say I was not mature?
I gave a disclaimer, for lack of a better word. English failed me.
Thank you very much, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Yeah, good to have you, Honourable Mwine. And like I said, he is the chairman of the Committee on Trade, Industry and Tourism. Through Zoom from home in Buziga, the technical team. Yes, we are going to be joined by Honourable David Bahati, Ndorwa County West, in Kavale MP, and he is the minister in charge of, is the Minister of State for Industry. Honourable Bahati, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Charlse, and thank you, viewers.
Good. Let me, this time, I like starting with the people who are supposed to, usually I like starting with the people who are supposed to implement the policies, supposed to lead the country in executing the duties or different tasks. But this time, given what is going on, allow me start with Honourable Mwine Mpaka. There is a parliamentary committee that has been going around the country and talking to a number of people on trying to understand the challenges that are going on in trade, on commerce, generally business if you like. And I want us to start from that, to pick the pointers from that. What exactly, Honourable, from Parliament, have you gathered as the biggest challenge that now we have amidst COVID-19, but most especially coming from this last lockdown that we have just ended?
Thank you, Charles. First and foremost, our committee has industry, trade, and tourism, so it's quite large. When you look at the challenges we have been picking from the ground up country and even here in the central, there are quite many. But one keeps coming up, which is loans. Everyone is talking about loans. We are aware in the past that most loans were restructured, but people still don't appreciate the point of restructuring. They think it has probably created a bigger burden on them than helping them. We also have challenges in taxation. Every person we are meeting is talking about we need a tax waiver, we need a tax reduction, we need to, for example, the textile industry. We are aware the East African community passed a tax, 35% on textile, or its equivalent, which is $3, whichever is higher. And this has affected the businessmen because they say they cannot sell their textiles, their garments in kilograms. It's not like a butcher where you are selling meat in kilograms. So when they import these goods and you're going to weigh them and force them to pay in kilograms, it is a very big challenge. As they import, first of all, you are not considering quality. You are just considering the weight. During importation, there are boxes, there are hangers, there are so many things that are involved in the packaging. So if you're importing a container, you'll discover in the long run that you're paying about 60 million in just garbage. That is the polythenes and what. So we have also found a challenge with the tourism industry. We used to have about 350,000 tourists coming into the country. Now we have about 80,000. We are aware that government put a waiver of VAT on upcountry hotels. This was on the accommodation. But in our interaction with the hotel owners, they claim that this has not assisted them because there are no people in the hotels. So you are giving them a waiver, but people are not in the hotels. So they believe it was probably a trick from the government, but they have not benefited much from this. We have also discovered that we need a competition law in the country. We also need a consumer protection law. You have seen the issues of the medical hospitals charging a lot of money. So we think we need a consumer protection law to curb these predator prices that are coming up every now and then. Then the market for our commodities abroad.
Before you go to the market, why competition law?
Well, when we were in Western Uganda, we discovered a challenge. We were interacting with the business community. There's no longer a difference between the wholesaler, the manufacturer, the retailer, because they gave an example of roofings. Roofings before was a manufacturer. Now they have put an outlet in Mbarara specifically, so they're now selling directly to the consumer. So there seems not to have order. There's no order in the chain, in the supply chain, which was there before. We also have a problem with the trade policy. The trade policy expired in 2018, and this trade policy was supposed to guide the country. It was supposed to give the country a strategic direction. Unfortunately, probably Honourable Bahati will explain to us why they have not yet come up with a new trade policy. We also need to review the Investment Code Act 2019. We are aware that we are now going into a situation where we have unhealthy competition. We have foreigners coming into the country with cheap money. They get money at very low interest rates. They are competing with our businessmen. And on top of that, they are getting incentives as opposed to our local businessmen. We have also discovered that we do not have people in our foreign missions who have the relevant knowledge, skills, and values to deal with the trade industry. I am meant to believe that the Ministry of Trade interviewed commercial attaches, but unfortunately, the list that was sent to our foreign missions were diplomatic attaches to do commercial work. So probably Honourable Bahati will also explain to us how this came about. Basically, everyone is talking about taxes, taxes, taxes. You know, we have a debt ratio of a debt burden of 66.1 trillion. So when someone comes to the committee, they're talking about reduce this tax. If you reduce this tax, we shall make money. And you know, tax is a function of profit. So we are now trying to see which taxes can we reduce. We have come up with a few of them. For example, the payee. We know people have not been working. So we do not see why this tax should be paid. They have not been actively engaged in production.
Okay.
So we are looking at payee and several other taxes.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Honourable Mpaka. Let me go to Francis, the man from the leading the private sector. Are these challenges in tandem with what you find in the market, dealing with the private sector players directly and more regularly?
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank the Honourable. I think they really did a very, very good job. Thank you very much, Honourable. Our viewers, the challenge of COVID has been very challenging on the private sector. For one reason, that it is so new. It has created a situation that we didn't know. Nobody ever knew that you could actually be closed down. You spend months without opening your shop, opening your factory, and all the things that you are used to doing, your children being home and all of that. So these situations have brought in very, very new things. Already, they have introduced something that the business community didn't know, that you can open your shop, you can produce goods, and those goods are not bought. The reason is that people are not working, they don't have money. And because they don't have money, they don't buy as much from you. As we speak, it is only 30% of the goods that people are producing that are actually sold. So this has a lot of implications that Honourable Mpaka has actually raised here. And for us, as private sector, and the biggest cry we are receiving from our companies is that let us try to do something to ensure that we restore our markets, at least to some level, like at about 50%. If that happens, then you are going to have a restoration of cash flows. Cash flows that are going to help them to deal with their taxes, to deal with their loans, to pay their employees and their suppliers. Besides, the cost of inputs is also increasing. So that is why you are hearing a lot of talk about defer taxes, waive taxes, and do this and the other.
Okay.
The reason is we want to ensure that we rebuild the cash which we need to run our businesses.
Professor, is it a good approach for businesses to pray or even request widely for tax deferring and even cutting and all that. What is your view of the approach that we are taking to solve some of these problems, whether from government or from the private sector? How should we approach this? How should we get the solution to the challenges that they have enumerated?
Personally, I think that there is need to have different perspectives to the challenge we have. A short term and a long term. In terms of the formal sectors, which the Honourable has talked about and the ED has talked about, I think there's need to have a much more long-term perspective of it, because we don't know yet. We don't know what the coronavirus has done. So we cannot say. The beauty of business is that it somehow finds its way. Entrepreneurs never fail. They always emerge. The business may fail, but the entrepreneur will always emerge given the conditions that exist. So what we are seeing at the moment is a decline in demand, closure of business, laying off of employees. The entrepreneur, that business person who is assessing the environment and seizing opportunities, is going to emerge in a different manner altogether. I don't think that entrepreneur is going to emerge out of cutting taxes. But generally, there is belief that when you lower taxes, you increase production, you give people more money to spend, and therefore you grow the economy. But there is a level at which you must stop, because you may cut taxes, like when you see the United States economy, whenever they're cutting taxes, they're helping the wealthy people to be wealthier. So in our case, you must really be very careful. You are cutting taxes for who? So I think that at the moment, I wouldn't wish to, if I was the one, I would think that the big companies are going to sort themselves out with time, once they've known what is taking place. Because, like I said, business somehow finds itself back, you know, working and rumbling, and people will be selling things. But right now, I think our emphasis should be on food production. You can never stop eating food. Can we stop food? Can we look at food production, and can we look at the regional markets for food for this country? This is where me government should be, you know, putting its emphasis on. Now, once you have the farmer having more money in his pocket, then he will be able to demand the products that are being sold by these big companies which you're talking about. So at the moment, I think, yes, we can ask for tax cuts, tax reductions, but there should be relief rather than a policy. That if a company like, just for argument's sake, a company like Coca-Cola finds that it needs to be able to increase its production, but is being prevented by high taxes, then let's go and reduce the taxes there. But of course, this should be an informed decision.
So when you talk about relief, are you referring to the kind of approach that government is putting in place for COVID hit businesses, stimuli, or is it a different mechanism?
Again, that's why I think the stimuli should go more to the ordinary food production businesses rather than the big businesses. The big businesses can sort themselves out, as I said, because they have capital reserves. Many of them are able to survive. I know that many businesses have got stocks out there. They can't sell anything, so they don't have cash flows. So what is the problem then? The problem is that the economy has been closed. It has nothing to do with taxes. And the other big problem is that even government, because the businesses are not selling, there's no tax coming, tax revenue coming. So it's a bit of a tricky thing. How do you balance that? Government needs the money through taxation, but the businesses are not selling. So if they're not selling, how do we stimulate demand in the economy? I believe those areas where we must, as a matter of necessity, continue to consume, those are the areas emphasis must be put in the short run. In the long run, the formal sector needs to be organized. But the formal sector, as I'm saying, will also sort itself out. Once this comes up and they see the demand, they'll see where the demand is, and they'll sort themselves out. That's my belief.
Okay, Sarah, one of the sectors that, one of the sectors that probably is always or often more hit is the youth, the women, and COVID has not spared them at all, of course. Do you think that the kind of competition, the natural competition that the market should be left to, that Professor is talking about, and that they can then find their own means of survival, does it really favor that group or those groups, the women, the youth, the new players on the scene in trade? What's your take?
Charles, before I come to that specific question, I think it's important to show the viewer what is the outlook of the economy out of lockdown. If you look at Chikubu, the fulcrum of our business and money transactions has been closed for 1.5 months. But generally, I was reading data from National Planning Authority. Out of the first lockdown, our economy contracted by 6%. But also, if you look at general COVID and how it has disrupted the supply chain globally, yet we are heavy, reliant on imports than exports. So we have our imports double the exports as a nation, and we have an automatic negative balance of trade as a country. So when you have this, and then our weighted average tariff is below the recommended, it is at 8% when the recommended average weighted tariff should be 11.57%. So we have this challenge of the economy as a country. That is not to say, of course, our governance challenges that go into the escalating public debt. Also, there's a survey by the Economic Policy Research Center together with the Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises. The survey, which was released 2 days ago, says that 68% of small business owners ate their savings during lockdown. 21% sold their assets to make ends meet. 49% are struggling to make, to make ends meet, and 36% are on the verge of collapse. This study was released 2 days ago. So when we are discussing small and medium income enterprises, where the youth and women fall most, the survey says 81% of women, small business entrepreneurs, are likely not to return to work.
81%. 81, sorry.
Yes, of the women. So that's how far the lockdown has affected the economy. When you look at the side of employment, agriculture is still the biggest employer in this country. And
subsistence at that.
Yes. And we saw how agricultural prices were affected by the ban of inter-district travel. Matoke in my place could not even attract 2,000 shillings in Western Uganda. The second biggest employer other than agriculture is Boda Boda. Boda Boda has been closed for 1.5 months. So what economy are we discussing?
But
if you got formal employment, many people have been earning half salary in lockdown, especially for the industries where there must be output. So So where is the disposable income to create the purchasing power for the economy to thrive on its own? But also, what can we learn from other countries? Other countries have done proper stimulus packages to maintain cash flow, to keep businesses afloat, to save jobs during the pandemic. We have attempted at the stimulus packages. The money that was put in UDB, most of it went to ghost businesses. The money that was put in commercial banks, I saw Parliament saying they need a forensic audit. The money that was put in the creative industry is given without proper procedures, to whom it may concern. So what are our approaches as a country at salvaging the economy during COVID? Because we cannot even talk. Nobody knows how long COVID is going to last. Many countries are planning for 3 to 5 years in the minimum, but they are adapting to live with COVID. So the biggest question should be, how are we adapting to save lives, save livelihoods, and salvage the economy as a country? I think that's the biggest question.
Okay, I think it is the best time that we can bring in the Honourable Minister Bahati. Honourable Bahati, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Thanks a lot. I deliberately wanted to the panelists here in the studio to underline the main pointers to what we are discussing this evening, especially through looking at the challenges that are so pervasive now, affecting the trade, affecting industry, affecting commerce generally. Sarah has capped it up with a number of some hard-hitting facts that have been got from recent statistics. Let's start from some of those. A lot of money from government going towards ghost, projects or ghost businesses, and that perhaps livelihood is what should concern government right now. What is your take on some of those?
Thank you very much, Charles, and thank you, my colleagues in the studio, the Honourable Chairperson of our committee, and also my teacher, Professor Varuna. First, Charles, I think we need to first thank the Ugandans for the vigilance that we have had over the last 42 days. We have seen COVID cases come down, but also want to sympathize for those friends, relatives that lost their dear ones. And of course, Charles, as you know, today is a very important day, especially what's happening in Tocho. We want to say that we congratulate our own Chemtai for winning the gold. And therefore, despite this pandemic and despite the circumstances we are going through, there are also some good things happening, especially in Athletics. I want to take it where Professor Badunga has stopped. Now we know that this pandemic might not end in a short time that we had hoped, and therefore the effects will be looked at in the short term, medium term, and long term. In the short term, we are focusing on giving relief to those struggling businesses, but also putting up an environment that lays the foundation for the medium term and the long term. All of us, Charles, it's time to come together to close the chapter of lamentations, but open the book of revelations to find solutions to the challenges that have been brought about by COVID. Last year, we put in place some relief strategies to help struggling small, medium enterprises, but also even large enterprises. Small, medium enterprises, because They do employ 90% of our of the workforce, but also they contribute tremendously to our GDP. And therefore, we had to put in place issues to do with tax, as Honourable Mpaka was referring to, incentives or pay as you earn. We also put in waivers for the penalties. We put 486 billion in UDB. Whether this has been accessed is something that we are evaluating for it, and this year we have put 100 billion. We appealed to some landlords, and some accepted, others did not accept, to be lenient to the landlords, to the tenants, because this has been a very difficult period for the tenants. And we also continued to encourage the government departments to support the policy of Bubu by purchasing what is internally produced here. So moving forward, as you know, last week, His Excellency the President announced another package of 100 billion to support small medium enterprises, and stakeholders, we are coming up with a mechanism on how small medium enterprises can help them get some patience capital. In the short and in the long run, the medium and long run, we must address the challenges that we think are going to face the business community, the private sector now and in the future, because I think we are looking at 2 to 3 years and even beyond to address the effects of COVID. Issues of power support the industry, electricity, which is something that the industry has been crying about. Issues of continuing to maintain these tax incentives to support the sector. Issues of market and standardization of produce, of products, are issues that government is looking at. But in the short, medium term, we see that industry is going to continue playing a key role. Value addition, as Professor Barunyo has said, we were lucky the economy did not collapse because, one, we had food. Secondly, our industry could work. And therefore, we must support industry to be able to add value to what we are producing, increase the shelf life of the things that we are producing, to be able to export them in other markets. But amidst all these, Charlse and viewers, we have also seen that our economy has remained resilient. We have seen that actually now we are starting to look inward to focus on import substitution. For example, all related matters, products that relate to health have been actually produced by our own industry. The masks you are putting on, the sanitizers, and other products that are needed by our health sector. So in the medium term, I think in the long term, we need to focus on import substitution and export promotion. We need to look inwards a little bit, create an environment, continue to create an environment that supports industry, because industry is going to continue playing an important role. Industry and industrialization is a sector that will actually drive the economy through the COVID times and going beyond. And therefore, as a ministry now, we are also helping the sector. The small and medium enterprises require this cope with the pandemic. It is now obvious that we cannot continue, whether you're industry or agriculture, we have been doing must adopt innovative technologies that can help you survive the current pandemic. So government is playing its own role. The laws that the Honourable Chairperson in tourism has mentioned are already in process. The competition law, the issue of counterfeit products, consumer protection Honourable, these are issues that we'll be discussing with you in a very near future in the committee, because we are processing them to be able to support the industry. So
Honourable,
the point is,
Honourable Bahati.
Government is looking. Yes, please.
Your line is breaking. I'm not sure the viewer out there is getting it all well. You need to check it a bit. But I had wanted to make a follow-up. I think yes. Earlier it was okay. Generally it was okay. Yeah. But I wanted to make a follow-up. You spoke about the ideal interventions and areas that should be focused. One of the panelists here mentioned the issue of spending by government. Are you convinced with where you're putting the money, especially when businesses that you see and observe as being genuine are crying that we are not seeing the stimuli, and yet you know, in some cases where people have turned what is meant to be a stimuli meant for something else is taken into something else, and there is no a reviewing of that or evaluation of that. Are you satisfied with that, Honourable?
We will be cross-checking on some of those facts that have been raised by the business community. But all I can say that we have been transparent in where we're investing our money. For example, we have said if you want, for especially the medium and large enterprises, if you want support from government, we have invested 483 billion, and this financial year we put in 100 billion. So we know, they know, everybody knows where, if you want money from government, cheap capital, where to find it. We are now going to invest 100 billion through Microfinance Support Center to support small and medium enterprises. Now, working with them, and I'm glad that the private sector is also in the studio, working with them, we shall be addressing the bottlenecks. One of the bottlenecks that we have been informed about is the process, the period in which it takes to access this money, and we are addressing it. We want, if you have a good idea, if you are looking for support and you have put everything in place, you should not take more than a month to access this support. Otherwise, it does not make sense. So we are addressing that issue with UDP, with UDC, and all other agencies of government that have been mandated to handle this matter. Okay.
Professor, do you think that government is, in this period, putting the money in the right place? And we cannot be shy about the complaints. Last week we had a discussion on whether or not MPs, for example, and there are many examples of such questions and also agitation from the parliament, from the public, asking where does really our mouth lie? Should we be putting money in comfort, in luxury at this point? Are you satisfied with what is going on from your viewpoint?
Well, I think it's just unfortunate that it so happened that we had elections and parliament is being constituted and it must be financed.
Yeah.
So if it has to be financed, it has to be financed.
Yeah.
But for the public, they definitely can't see it that way. That during these difficult times, why are our representatives taking away money? I think the onus is on parliamentarians, really, to take the decision to say, can we wait a little bit before this money is disbursed to us? I think the onus was on them. But otherwise, there is a legal obligation to make sure that the various arms of government are functioning. I mean, we have been getting salary throughout this period as employees of government, and we thank government for it. But the onus in case of parliament was on them as people's representatives to take a decision and say, I think let's delay the decision to, give us this and that and the other, in the interests of what is taking place around us. Of course, we have challenges in government. Of course, first of all, the size of government is too big. So that is something that needs to be looked at. But again, that's a long-term thing. It's not something you're going to decide. Today we have a coronavirus, tomorrow we must change government size. You can't decide that. So, but it is important to look at it. These are lessons we are picking. That now that there's a reduction in government revenues, where do we need to cut? So maybe that's one of the areas where they need to cut. So these are long-term decisions, and parliamentarians are the ones who are supposed to take these decisions themselves.
Honourable Mwine, in your committee, do you allay the public fears about where government is really focusing its priorities, and especially things to do with the consumptive expenditures, not very productive, meant to fund luxury? Do you advise government as people's representatives that this is what should be done?
First of all, I think all committees handle different sectors. But one thing we should take note of is the GDP has gone down. Previously we were at 5.7%, now we are 2.9%. And this comes with challenges. First case scenario is unemployment. Second case scenario could be lower spending power. And in the worst case scenario, it could be a recession. Now, when you look at the packages, stimulus packages we have been talking about, UDB, and I'm happy Honourable Bahati has talked about the small medium enterprises. Because when you look at UDB, we would expect UDB to be helping these small medium enterprises. All the people we have interacted with have told us that UDB actually has not been of any significant help. They have applied for over 8 months and they have never received this money even after signing contract. We were meant to meet UDB today, but unfortunately they didn't have the necessary documents and we had to send them back to produce all the relevant documents and come and meet and interact with the committee. So I think government's intentions are good, but the methodology of disbursing these funds, I think, is the one that still has a very big challenge. Wherever they put funds, there are always issues. We are not feeling the impact of this stimulus package. We do not see this stimulus package. And UDB doesn't have branches anywhere up country. Yeah. And I wouldn't expect someone come from Mbararat, come from Kabale, come from Gulu to come and apply for this money. Most of the time they have already given up, even before they come to apply for this money. When you look at the percentage of people who have benefited from the stimulus package in UDB, it's largely central. So I think government's intentions have been good, but the methodology of distributing this money or getting it down to the ordinary person, the ones that are still of a very big challenge. The other issue is the e-commerce. During COVID, people have learned new ways of doing business, and one of them is e-commerce, online marketing and the rest. But we still have a challenge of the excise duty, the 12%. And the Facebook, you are aware that it was shut down. So this is one of the avenues actually our people would be using to do business. Uganda is in East Africa is ranked the highest in internet charges. We have 2.67 US dollars per gigabyte, followed by Kenya that has 2.41, and Tanzania and Rwanda respectively at 2.18. So when you look at the 3 A's, accessibility, affordability, and accessibility, affordability, and availability of internet, you see that we are really doing poorly. Only 10.6 million people in Uganda are using the internet. So I think it's a general discussion. The true history of the world is a history of conversation, and I think government should accept to interact and listen to the various stakeholders, as opposed to the past. You come up with a stimulus package, you put it somewhere, you have not consulted the stakeholders, you have not called the private sector foundation, you have not called the civil society. I think it just needs inclusiveness. People should own and guide.
Okay. Professor, you wanted to raise...
Yeah, I wanted to raise the issue of Uganda Development Bank. I think when the stimulus package was being talked about, at that time there was a statement that over 1 billion shillings would be put into UDB. UDB in the financial markets is a bank for long-term capital. It cannot be used by small businesses. So, and I thought, if I'm not mistaken, that again this money was taken out and either taken to the microfinance center or something else. I can't remember, but UDB funds developmental projects. It was not a proper vehicle to deliver a stimulus package, unless if it was delivering a stimulus package for the new factories like producing masks, producing sanitizers, then UDB would come in to play that role. Otherwise, you would be burdening UDB to look at small scale people. Because even the process, the costs of doing it, small enterprises cannot borrow from UDB.
But is that their problem? If I'm given money to disburse, I will accept. Shouldn't it be government to say, this is not your work, your portfolio is supposed to be...
But I think, Maurice, I think government finally changed that money and put it somewhere else. Because like the Honourable said, UDB has no branches. So who is going to go into the bank? Maybe PSFU has some idea.
I'm sure it still has it. Government actually has it. And maybe that's why they have made the process so hard to get, because maybe the kind of people going there are the people you are saying are not targeted, because they are often the majority, aren't they? Francis, you wanted to cut in.
Yes, thank you very much. And I wanted to emphasize the point that the Honourable has raised, the point of engagement. And the Honourable Minister also talked about it. We are seeing government engaging a lot with the private sector in planning, in setting up policies. But when the time for implementation comes, then they are not actually involving the private sector in implementation. Now, that is why you end up with a solution that was meant to provide relief to companies that had suffered COVID being taken to a bank that was supposed to provide long-term capital for investment. And that's not the only one. So we've learned ourselves at Private Sector Foundation that when we engage to have the policies established, to have all these vehicles, we should also continue on in the implementation. And we ask government to accept our role in the implementation. But the other point I wanted to actually talk about, which also derives from that, is the fact that sometimes our government does contradictory policies. And you don't see it, you see it very clearly when they're actually putting up tax policies. Yes, we know very well that the country has suffered from COVID. We need to rebuild it. We need to start somewhere. Everybody has suffered. Government too has suffered. Private sector has suffered. Households have suffered. Now, when we are rebuilding your tax policy in a situation like this, how do you do it? Last year, we saw a lot and a lot of focus to trying to increase taxes because of the pressures that government has in terms of expense. But these taxes have got a profound impact on the way businesses are run. I don't want to repeat examples, but you know very well the taxes like on internet. Right now, all of us want to access internet because all what we do, most of it has gone on internet, you know. Now, the taxes are up. Yes, you have provided some exceptions for schools, for health facilities, good. But that is one part. There is the business community that wants to access markets over a digital platform. Because their shops are closed, they cannot reach the consumers in the same way they used to. And then what you do is you increase the taxes on internet. There is another one, and the minister was talking about the kind of resources that have been put forward to support young people, to support the business community. But again now, the things that people use, for instance, we're being told about the textiles that young people and ladies and men use to actually make clothes. You increase their taxes so much. So in the end, you have given money on the other side so that these people can do work. On the other hand, you're increasing the taxes so the materials are very high. So in the end, the young people and the people who are in that business struggle and in the end fail. So it is a loss-loss situation. So we would like to encourage government, and we thank it very much. It is a listening government. We would like it to involve us as much as possible in streamlining and participating and suggesting how the implementation should actually be done.
Councillor Sarah, the issue of internet and its issues, Facebook not working and all that in most of the cases, is it a major blow to business, especially online business or e-commerce, as Honourable referred to it? Do you by now, as civil society, have the statistics of the kind of the amount of the magnitude of effect that it has on e-commerce, on commerce generally?
Yeah, first of all, because of the nature of COVID and the disruption I talked about of the supply chain, no travels. You know, at one time I think all planes were grounded, nobody could fly. So the UN report on mitigating economic impacts caused by COVID shows that there has been 81% increase in e-commerce. Most of the importation is actually, and purchases is happening digitally. Even in our case, if anybody really has been able to purchase things from in the 18 months, I think about 80% of our purchases are online. So, and then when it comes to Facebook, it's the most popular platform in Uganda, I think with about 15 million users and above. It's it's double people using other platforms like Twitter and WhatsApp.
Combined.
Yes, and when you go to the countryside, where most of the time we work from, you find that the rural population uses more Facebook than Twitter or WhatsApp, because Twitter is regarded as elitist and yeah. Even local radio programs in the villages run on Facebook. So that shows the magnitude of usage. Then, because of unemployment challenges, even before lockdown, many young people were engaged in e-commerce. E-commerce minimizes operational costs, rent and other, like setting up a shop for a young person. It is easier for a young person to start a business online, be able to get, trusted suppliers or buy goods and distribute them online. And because of the time schedule of the working class, especially corporate class, people no longer have time to go to shops. So either you are going to use online platforms and with the capacity to deliver to your office, or you will wait for a weekend. And even considering the traffic jam in the central business district, I think it's no longer desirable really to go to shops and do shopping.
Okay.
So So that shows you the impact of e-commerce.
Okay.
Creates more jobs, easy to manage, and can work during the challenges like COVID. But how many producers in Uganda, especially the local business producers, have capacity to do trade online? They need the literacy on how to do things online. They need available and reliable internet. Our bandwidth in the country is really terrible. Then now it's worsened by the cost. So I think among the economic mitigating issues, government needs to look at e-commerce and be able to facilitate it.
Honourable Bahati, hello?
Yes, please.
Honourable Bahati, the question of availability of, availability of internet full-time is becoming a big issue that is being discussed, not just outside there, but in Parliament as well, and making people miss e-business. Do you think that the government that you're one of the leaders can reverse that thinking that internet must be switched off, and why would that be so?
First, if I may, Charles,
please go ahead.
I wanted to give information to what Professor Barunya was trying to find out, where we put the money for helping the industry, helping the business community. There are majorly 6 areas where the funds that government has invested can be found. The first was UDB. That's where we put professor and those who are listening, resources that support industry, majorly medium and large industries, which are in a formal sector. The second is UDC, where government thinks that can have a hand, like Katiak and other areas. I think now we are running 63 factories, including the cassava for starch and the rest. That's where government is going to have equity. Then the third is for small companies. We put money under the microfinance support center, and that is financed through SACCOs. Then the other one is commercial banks. We are running agriculture credit facility, which is a matching grant. If you're a farmer and you want to access these funds, we have put money through Bank of Uganda and the commercial banks, so you access them through commercial banks, which are spread across the country. And then we put also money. You cannot access resources under the 4 that I've talked about. You can access money now through EMIOGA, organized groups around the skill that can access resources, which we spread at the constituency level. Then we also put money under ICT, Ministry of ICT, for those young people who are innovative, who have some solutions, some developing apps, but they cannot access money. And that was put under ICT and also the Ministry of Science and Technology. And of course, as you know, we also had some little relief through direct cash transfer through mobile money under the Office of the Prime Minister. So those are majorly 7 areas where we have tried to have a mechanism to access, where people can access these resources to support them. And of course, government resources, as required by the Public Finance Management Act, must pass through a system that's going to be accountable, transparent, and can be accessed by the public. We are aware that UDB has some challenges of being reached by people all over the country, but they are put in place systems that can work with Post Bank and other institutions to access them. The issue of internet, first and foremost, there is the issue of accessibility. Do we have enough internet that can be accessed and facilitate e-commerce in the country. And the challenges that we are having now, I think, are going to be resolved when we finish what we call the phase 5 of the national backbone, that is aimed at taking the internet to the last inch of the family. That's what we are working on, and I think it will take time. Then the other issue is the cost of internet. You recall, Charles, there were so many things, so many charges on the internet. So what we did last financial, actually this financial year, was perhaps all the costs associated with internet and put them under one package and charge it. You recall, we removed the OTT and other charges. Now we have one single cost of 12% on the internet. So is the internet we're accessing now cheaper than it was last financial year? The answer is yes. The cost of internet now in 2020 is cheaper than the cost of internet in 2019. The cost rather in 2021 is cheaper than 2019. So now what we need to do is, given what we are looking at, the fact that the pandemic is going to take some little time to be sorted out, 1 year or 2, 3 years, and e-commerce is going to be at the center of our economic development. Then we need to now, this financial year, look at this cost and see whether it is a cost that can facilitate e-commerce or whether we can adjust it. But in terms of the cost compared to where we are coming from, there was a reduction, and the reduction was in the way of consolidating all the charges, reduce the cost to 12%. Instead of charging OTT, excise duty, and all that, we say let's have one package. And that's what we passed in Parliament, and I think we are better off than we were last financial year.
Thank you. Thank you. I am receiving so many messages from the audiences out there. I am going to just pick 2 randomly and read them, and then we break briefly. And when we come back, we will continue with the discussion. But this time now, feel free to interject at any one moment, as long as you wish to. Francis from Lira is asking a similar question from what I think, was it Francis? Or this one is also called Francis. But he says, my concern is about the 100 billion shillings. How much is it that is given? Which bank gives this money? Now, those are real problems. So by the time someone is asking these issues, what is the interest? What security or collateral? How many years and starting from when? And he says, thank you. And then someone called Lameka says, hello, I am Lameka from Jinja. Let the government use monetary policy and fiscal policy to revive the economy. Monetary policy by using tools like bank rates, discount rates, which will ease commercial banks, access funds from the central bank, and give these funds to business owners at low interest rates. The construction is not so perfect. Lameka, you wrote, it's very long that you have written. Kindly just summarize in a line so that we can, when we come back, we can read it. But there are many messages. I'm going to read others when we come from the break. Let's take that break now. And this is Behind the Headlines. Don't touch your dial. And we are here discussing the issues to do with how to recover business-wise from the second lockdown that just ended last week. Let's break now.
Universal Periodic Review, UPR, is a unique process under the United Nations. It involves peer review of the human rights records of all UN member states every 4 years. The ultimate aim of the UPR is to help improve on the human rights situation in all countries through technical assistance and cooperation. Uganda will be reviewed in January 2022. This is an opportunity to raise international advocacy on Uganda's human rights situation. The National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda is coordinating all CSOs to participate in the CSO alternative reporting process in liaison with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. For more information, email info@hrdcoalition.ug or call 0772 484 504.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa only if we stay at home, observe physical distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly, or get vaccinated now.
Guess what happened yesterday? I entered the what? The taxi. But the pregnancy is from the what? The generator. Then my phone does tutu. And the toothbrush breaks in the what? In the porridge. Then I call who?
Wait, what?
First wait. I am still telling you. Then the jerrycan does what?
Love to talk? MTN My Paka Paka now has more minutes. Get My Paka Paka voice bundles to talk and talk at no extra charge. Dial *160*1# to activate My Paka Paka.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Welcome back from the break. This is Behind the Headlines, and this Wednesday, the 4th of August 2021, we are looking at trade, industry and commerce post the second lockdown that just ended last week. We have Professor Waiswa Balonywa, Principal of MOOBS. We have Council Sarah Birete. We have Honourable David Bahati, Minister of State in charge of industry, joining us through Zoom from home in Mutungo. We have, not Mutungo. We have Honourable Mwine Mpaka, Chairman of the Committee on Trade, Industry and Tourism, and we have Francis Kisirinya, who is the Acting Executive Director of the Private Sector Foundation Uganda. Before we went into the break, I promised that I would read some of the messages before I invite Honourable Mpaka to ask Honourable Bahati one or two questions. Someone called Kani says, "Good evening, Charles. My appreciation goes to His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for signing the NSSF 20%. This is the mid-access thing. And he said he's washing his hands like Pilate, because Pontius Pilate, and he has prophesied already that if anything goes wrong, it will be a lesson learned. So we come back and we correct from that learned lesson. Meaning from the tone that the president is not so comfortable with that midterm access. But it is the workers' money. Kani, just have those facts in mind. But thanks for the message. And he says, though some contents in that bill were smuggled, we are in a big dilemma. We lost jobs, we lost shelter because of loans. We therefore hope that the 20% can help us breathe. And then someone here does not mention their name. He says, taxing internet, he or she says, taxing internet is like a dad who comes home with sweets for the kids but decides to steal them and give them small bits of and pieces. That's a good analogy. And then let me pick this one. Charles, thanks for the show. I am Kenneth from Busabala. My worry and question is that during the first lockdown, people did receive the stimuli in terms of a mioga. Now, in this second lockdown, some of the members in the circles that received this package took the loans, but as we speak today, they have closed businesses and there are no savings and repayments made by them. So how is this going to be solved? And then someone called Dennis in Pader, in Acholi region, says, Charles, thanks for the show. And he's asking that this one should go to Honourable David Bahati. He says, what is the future of Facebook in our country? And then there is someone from Ginger and says, Lamek from Ginger. No, this one I had read already. Lamek from Ginger I had read. Let me pick another one. Charles, thanks for the show and the panel. I'm Kule Huntington at Rubaga Hospital. That we should accept that they are putting money where it is not necessary and get a way to turn this round. For example, the fund at UDB, you need to travel from Karamoja to Kampala to access it, and yet the taxes are also abnormal. There is no way Honourable Bahati can tell us that we are moving e-commerce when data tax has been imposed. Honourable Bahati, you have those questions. You need to take them down. You will read them short. You will respond to them. But there are other questions that the panelists want to raise from here as the discussion progresses. And like I said, feel free to interject now and as we keep the discussion more interactive. Honourable Mwine.
Thank you, Charles. I have just two questions to Honourable Bahat, actually three. He has talked about foreign markets, and it's actually a very serious issue. In 2019, I remember German rejected our SIM exports and actually destroyed them. And you're aware that Uganda is the 5th largest exporter of SIM. In 2015 and 2019, the European Union banned our chili, exportation of our chili. We have also had several cases in as far as our exports are concerned. So I want to ask Bahat, at what point does he advise the Minister of Agriculture, for example? Because we have people engaged in agriculture, but they are not sure if the type of crops, for example, we are giving out seedlings every now and then under OWC. But are these the required fruits that are demanded by the international market? So at what point does Minister of Trade advise Minister of Agriculture on the demands of the foreign markets? Then secondly, he didn't respond to the trade policy. I had asked Honourable Bahat why we do not have, why our trade policy expired in 2018 and we have not yet come up with a new policy, because this was supposed to give us strategic direction. Then lastly, the issue of the rent and the landlords. I've seen in Zimbabwe, the president has intervened, and people are not supposed to pay the rent. But during our interactions with landlords, we have found a challenge. They are telling us government has not done anything for us. They have not even sat with us to propose to waive a certain tax, whether it's ground rent or something. So why should they, in turn, forgive the tenants from paying this rent? So I want to ask Honourable Bahati, in their discussions at the Ministry of Trade, have they proposed anything, a give and take between the landlords and the tenants? Is there any tax he thinks we can waive, for example, from the landlords in order to help the tenants?
Or
That's
even
all.
a tripartite?
Yes.
With tenant, landlord, government coming in?
Yes.
Yes, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think in addition to questions raised by Honourable Mpaka, there is the issue of imports and containers that have stayed long without being cleared, and the accumulated damage. Because, and many importers import based on demand, but now the purchasing power of the would-be consumers has gone down. So as people struggle to reopen their shops or businesses, as people struggle to see how to get money to clear their goods, what are the interventions? And then the issue of bank loans. People with bank loans, beyond the tenant, there's an issue of bank loan, and we know the crisis that has happened in schools, for example. I don't have details of what is happening with businesses, but many people operate on loans. So what is going to happen?
Okay.
And what was our strategy as we locked down? That, because the citizens keep asking, what was the strategy as we locked down? What is the government plan on opening of, easing of lockdown, other than vaccination? I think we got information as a count on vaccination, but there is no information on other sectors, really.
Okay. Yes, Professor.
Maybe just some reaction on some of the issues. I think the lockdown, first of all, the primary aim was to stop the infections and hopefully deaths of Ugandans. I think there was no plan really. Nobody planned that after the lockdown, this is what should have happened. The first lockdown, there are many proposals. For instance, those people who were tenants in businesses, if the landlord forgave you the 3 months, government should have correspondingly given a waiver for the landlord for the tax for those 3 months. Instead, government said delay, and you could not delay because there was no revenue. So really there was I should say there was some kind of a mess here, that government actually did not help people. The stimulus didn't actually take place, because they said you can delay paying the tax, but from where? Because the income didn't come in. Now, I think after the first lockdown, we should have looked at, as government, we should have studied the impact. How do we now move to restore demand in the economy? But like I said, in a capitalist economy like ours, the private hand, the invisible hand, plays a very important role. Now, what we are doing as government is distorting. We are distorting the invisible hand. And when we distort the invisible hand, with the declared policy of free enterprise, then we are creating inefficiency in the economy. So if you say that the current market rates of interest are 23, which is a problem, it tells you about the inefficiency in the economy, and then you say you're going to give me a loan at 10%. You are distorting markets. Now, it means that I must continuously have a subsidy from government to be able to compete. I think that government effort should be directed more towards increasing the capacity of the individuals to do business rather than giving them money to do business. In terms of training, in terms of access to information, and of course, now and again, some tax reliefs. Tax, by definition, is a compulsory levy for which you don't expect anything in return. And, but our society does not understand taxes. Every businessman would actually wish government to give them money, and yet it's the other way around. Government can only operate if businesses are giving them tax. So there is then need for government to be able to study what is taking place. For instance, we are borrowing money because we don't have tax revenues. We are borrowing money. Where are we borrowing the money? We're borrowing money from the international community. And while the US government borrows at 0 interest rates, we are borrowing at 6%.
From the same sources.
And yet we are poorer.
Why?
And yet we are the ones importing those goods. We borrow money to buy those goods from those countries who are producing at 0%. Now, these are issues which really need to be looked at and studied very well. That government must understand the policies that they are putting in place to make us competitive. And our competitiveness as Uganda is going to come from our ability to feed the region. But to be able to feed the region, we must make the necessary proactive initiatives to find those markets.
Good. Thanks a lot. Sarah, you wanted to say something?
No, I wanted to say that we rely so much on imports because we have not systematically encouraged production as a country. Even in areas where we have comparative advantage, you find for 1 year the government is talking about this, especially on cash crops. They are talking about vanilla, then the next year they've jumped to coffee, then another year they are talking of something different, and people who planted vanilla, some of them got stranded with vanilla. Now you cannot hear any talk about vanilla. So we have not, over a long period of time, systematically encouraged production to be able to compete in areas where we have comparative advantage. Even looking at the East African market alone, what are we taking to the East African market? I think we still, even like COVID, maize was the highest export in EAC. But how much did we earn from maize as a country as compared to Kenya, Tanzania, and other countries? We were the least. Kenya and Tanzania are above us in earnings of maize in the EAC. So we need to sit down and see areas where we have comparative advantage and encourage systematic production in those areas to be able to have the balance of trade.
Okay, yes, Francis.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'd just like to look at it differently from the perspective that Professor talked about and Sarah. The perspective of the market. As much as we could do address production-related issues, we should also be very clear about which market, what do they want, and then we focus our production from what the market wants. Secondly, we need some effort, and the minister talked about it very, very, very well. We need some effort in the markets where we send our goods, we take our goods, to ensure that we dominate and send more goods there. As we speak, when you look at the ESC trade, you can see that it is coming down. Why? Because the partner states somehow feel like maybe they no longer really trust one another. I can't trust goods from one partner to come to my country. And in the end, you end up with production that is actually cannot getting to markets. But having said that, if you look at the current trade statistics, the kind of trade we have with the rest of Africa is actually much higher than what we have with EU. Forget about ESC, but the rest of Africa is much higher than what we have with the EU. What should we do? What are those products that they want? Beginning from the market there, how do we prepare and take advantage of those markets? One thing we shall propose to the Minister of Trade is to increase the numbers of economic counselors that we have in some of these embassies, so that there are people who are focusing on our interests from the economic perspective, not necessarily from the other interests that are there. We've got Congo, Algeria, and other markets. How do we expand the markets for our goods here, for the milks, for the beers, for the coffees, and all of those things, so that in the end, that market drives the production here, and it benefits everybody in the country.
Okay. Allow me, Honourable Minister, respond to some of those issues that were raised, and then we come back to the studio in some 2-3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. There are quite a number, but I'll try to as quick as possible. The first one was the future of in our country. Just to let you know, the Charlse and those who are listening, that the Ministry of ICT and UCC are engaging Facebook, and we think that in a very short time, this matter will be resolved. One of the reasons why this was shut down, everybody knows, it was involvement of Facebook in a partisan politics, which we thought was not helpful, but we're engaging with them, and I think it will be resolved very soon. The second point was the issue of loan restructuring. This is an ongoing, in terms of in the context of the landlord and tenant relationship. It is something that we continue to discuss with different stakeholders, but it's a very difficult one that you could ask the landlords not to charge the tenants in exchange of some tax reliefs or some. So it is something that we are really studying, and we'll continue to study. But what we are encouraging now is, if the Bank of Uganda, like they did last financial year, can continue to be patient with people who have loans in the banks, restructure them during this time, maybe waive some interest, then that can help. The third question was very important, I think, from the Honourable Fred and Parker. One, those who are listening, it's important to know that we really have massive markets for our products beyond our borders. We have the regional markets, and I think as the Minister of Trade and Corporate, we shall continue to sensitize the population to know what is available beyond our borders. The first one are the regional markets, the East African Community and the COMESA. We also have now signed to the African Free Trade Area. The whole of African continent is our market, a market of more than 1 billion people. The third important market that we have for our products is AGOA. This afternoon, we're in a meeting of our key stakeholders, agencies, and our ministry, and we were told by the person leading AGOA, Madam Susan Muhwezi, that actually we were given a quota of 6,400 products duty-free to access the American market. And out of that, we have some people here in Uganda who have started accessing, but they're accessing it slowly because of some bottlenecks, which we will be working on. And in terms of addressing the bottlenecks that are facing people who would want to access these markets, we passed accreditation act. This accreditation act is to improve the standards of our products so that we are able to produce products of the right standards to access the markets available. For us to be able to access the American market, the European market, the African market, we must begin from planting the right seedling in the right soils, harvest it properly, add value to it, improve on the standards, and make sure that we have facilities at the airports or points of entry or exit that remove things like toxins. That's why the next 1 year we are going to install gamma rays facilities at our airports, invest more than $100 million to help this. So sensitization of our business community, and also the other issue which has been addressing, or rather facing us, Charlse, is the issue of production. Sometimes we access these markets, but people out there want the right quantity and the right quality. So sometimes somebody produces, accesses this market, but they can't produce in a sustainable manner to feed this market. So we are doing all we can to ensure that there are standards in place to help our business community, the producers of these products, agriculture, and we are working with agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture, and other sectors to ensure that we access this market. And the aim is to improve our exports and also do import substitution. It's a long way, but I think the opportunities that are available, I'm happy that the person from the business private sector is around. The massive markets around the world for Uganda is really amazing, and we should take advantage of it. And that has shown us that we need to look inward in terms of strategy of import substitution, but also add value and standards so that to access the foreign market so that we can improve on our. Now, on the issue of 100 billion, we are coming up with a mechanism on how small medium enterprises can access this fund, and we think that there should be just a charge, not really massive interest. But very soon we'll be announcing that we are working out a mechanism with other stakeholders, including the Ministry of Finance, to be able to support our struggling enterprises. And as I said in the beginning, it's time for all of us to work together. Time to stop the lamentations and open the book of liberations to solutions that can address the standards of our products, can address the challenges that we are facing, so that we can continue to have an economy that's resilient, continue to access these markets and improve on exports, and continue supporting our business community. The trade policy would be giving you an update, Honourable Chair, once we visit your committee. There are a number of issues that we are going to discuss with update trade policy. One of the things that we take up with you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Let me bring it back to the house here, to the studio. Starting with the Honourable, especially that this complaint has been coming a lot, and you have seen it read even in the response from the public out there listening. This money that is talked about a lot and not seen, it's not seen in quotation, because it's possible that many people see it, many people touch it, many people get it. But are you concerned about the fact that many people keep referring to we are not getting it. We are not getting it. But you have put it here. I mean, despite the technicalities for now, let's first discuss the reality and how it is.
First and foremost, yes, like you have rightly said, people claim that they are not feeling the impact of the stimulus packages government has been providing and is planning to even provide. Probably people have lost hope. They believe that this money is curtailed. It's for a certain specific group. But like I said, I think the methodology and method of disseminating information. For example, the money they put in UDB, we interacted with the few stakeholders, and they gave us an example of Bella Wine. These were traders from Kasita. They say if someone from Bella Wine cannot access this money in UDB, part of us people who are down there in Ichku. So I think government needs to do much more in sensitization and also disseminating information about availability of these stimulus packages. But most important of all, I think we need to prioritize which sectors are we going to give this stimulus package, because we keep coming with a different thing. Today we have the stimulus package for this, tomorrow we have a stimulus package for a different item altogether. So I think we can come up with a robust plan involving all the ministries, so that we move in a more organized way. We can have Ministry of Trade planning for its sector, Ministry of Tourism planning for its sector. They can do this in cabinet and come with a more robust stimulus package, as opposed to these piecemeal packages. Okay, now we have come with one in UDB. Tomorrow we have come with one for small medium enterprises. Tomorrow we have come with another for this. So I think we just lack coordination and a more organized way of planning for the revival of our economy.
Okay. Yes. Who wants to come first? Francis? Francis, go for it.
Maybe what the Honourable should have added, even the ambition is a little bit tempered. We need to be big, look at ambitious. And when you're preparing these packages, actually, they should be substantial. I'll give you an example that when we're pushing and we're engaging government on putting money in UDB in the first lockdown, we are talking about a minimum of 1 trillion.
That they should put?
Yes.
That was about 3-4 years ago?
No, just last year.
Oh, the one for last year?
Yes, around May.
Yeah.
They did very well and came back with 443 billion, which was very good, but it couldn't actually meet the minimum that we thought could make a change. The same has actually happened with this new one for MSMEs that have come in. It is also a very good initiative, but they really, as the Honourable said, they have to be a little bit much bigger so that they can have an impact on the business community. Besides that, for us as private sector, we cannot sit there and say everything has gone wrong, all that we don't have hope, all that's, no. We believe that this economy is actually set up to succeed, and we are seeing opportunities on the horizon. Very recently, the long-awaited investments in the oil sector have started, and we think these are going to be massive opportunities for the business community in Uganda. And the business people who are seeing us tonight, these are opportunities that you should actually start seeing how to benefit from. I was looking at the report of people accessing money from banks, and I was surprised that of the people who borrowed in May, I think the people who borrowed for oil are just like 1%. And yet the investments and the money have started flowing. So probably we could look at how best they can actually improve and access resources that can help them to take advantage. In the oil sector, there are going to be lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of contracts there. The second thing is that we are seeing opportunities that are coming and are opening up for increases in prices of coffee. We've heard that Brazil, which is one of the largest producers, has actually suffered a frost. And that means that for the next 2 years, they might not have coffee on the international market. So for us as Uganda, this is actually an opportunity, and we should take care of them, or take advantage of this opportunity. COVID itself has created new opportunities that we can take advantage of. Businesses that run on ICTs, businesses that are in healthcare, businesses that are managing quality, manufacturing, especially for import substitution. All these are advantages we can take care of. But one thing that we have learned as PSFU, and I think perhaps you may agree with me, that to take advantage of some of these opportunities, especially in the agriculture sector that the minister talked about, management of quality, management of quantity, and things like that, you really need to create cooperative working. You can call it whatever you want. If you do not call it cooperatives, it's okay. But you really must have cooperative working. Now, the Minister of Trade is responsible for cooperatives. We would have liked to hear tonight what plans the ministry has to promote cooperative working so that we can take advantage of all of those opening opportunities.
Okay.
I have a quick question to Francis.
Yes.
You know, as you shared on the opportunities, I was like, you know, civil society works more with the poor and vulnerable people. I was like, maybe you're speaking to the large companies, the big businesses, and you know, the businesses that are least affected by COVID. But do you think the small or medium enterprise that we are talking about that is closing or falling out of business, that has no economic resilience, is able to benefit from such opportunities?
Yeah, I believe so.
Maybe to add to that, I have heard from some of the businesses as well, saying that when we go to Investment Authority, when we go to UDB, the common cry of access, as private sector foundation and as the managers in that sector, do you go out of your way to stand for these members or investors or something like that, that this we need them to get? Please get them the money. Do you do that, or you only stop at also just talking and...
Thanks very much, Charles.
Honourable is saying that you also have a lot of money.
But private sector?
Private Sector Foundation partnered with MasterCard. I think that they had 8.2 million US dollars.
For COVID?
To revive during COVID.
To revive the economy?
He will explain.
With MasterCard, wasn't that for the young people, for the youth, just that a specific group?
Parliament has also allocated them 42 million US dollars. He will explain.
Okay.
Thanks very much. The 8 million from MasterCard, I know, but the Parliament, the 43 that has been allocated.
Probably you have not received, but we allocated.
Yes, we might not have received.
Now you have got information to follow up. Let it not be air supplied.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Because for them they allocate, or appropriate for that matter. That's their constitutional role. But the entity to give you the money is different. So you have information here, evidence on camera rolling.
We shall follow that up, Honourable. Thanks very much, Sarah. About the issue of do we really see an opportunity for the
Small.
Ordinary business person, a young person at the household, benefiting from all these opportunities I've talked about? Yes, we see an opportunity. And we believe that these opportunities can be exploited very clearly if we work in a cooperative way. You can call it, as I said, anything. For us, as Private Sector Foundation, we have created a mechanism of cooperatively working, which is called the lead farm structure. Now, lead farm structure starts with those organizations and companies that have those markets niche, have the capacity to drive value chains. And then we organize everybody in those value chains along and to be led by that, what we call the lead farm. Now, you can find opportunities for everybody there. Whether somebody is just leaving school and has never done anything, we can, as long as there is an opportunity to supply something to the lead farm. If it is an agricultural product and this person can access land, they can be given a contract, they can be supported with the inputs, the training, and so on and so forth, and they produce. Now, when they produce, of course, the system is able to watch over everything that is being done, from quality, quantity, extension services, post-harvest, and final delivery to the lead farm. And then the lead farm pays. So everybody benefits from that system, and the vulnerable people benefit through that.
Okay.
So that is...
Professor has something he wants to say.
Yes, yes. Francis has talked about the Brazilian frost in coffee, which would have given Uganda a very good boost for earnings for the ordinary people. And the Honourable Member of Parliament talked about our Simsim, which was destroyed in Germany. And it goes back to, are Ugandans serious about doing business?
Taking opportunities.
These opportunities exist, but I mean, we can't deliver what we want to deliver. We can't have good quality. If you go to buy coffee, people are bringing unripe coffee, and these are challenges that, yes, there is so much effort that will be done to give business people an opportunity to make money. But if we don't fix the moral high ground for business, we have no business. And back to the support. Personally, I believe that, yes, some support should be given to the private sector, especially the small businesses, in terms of training. I do not believe in handouts to small businesses. True, in the first lockdown, I actually wrote, it's on script, that people should be given money. You know, it is out there in the public. So somebody's asked me, did you still stand by what you said at that time? Yes, at that time, there was a need to restart the economy because the small business people in the markets, in the border, ate up the savings, as has been said. So that was a time to possibly give people some stimulus to get the economy going. Somehow, as I said, with this invisible hand of capitalism, people were able to start. And again, we have had another lockdown, and again, the economy is on the south end, going the south end. So, what the country needs to do is to continue, government to continue to provide an enabling atmosphere for the business people to work, and making sure that the laws, we have too many laws which prevent business from taking place, by the way. You know, there's too much control. I think that this control, my experience in India is that business is 7 years ahead of the law. So the law comes and follows business. In this country, the law is ahead of the business. You know, they put so many laws that they actually prevent you from actually starting the business. Then government comes to and help you to do something which you are going to fail to do because the laws will not support you. So I think it's very important for us to be able to say that we should have a mixed economy. That's very important. And government must take some decisions to be able to participate in certain areas. For instance, in buying produce. But also we need to have a cadre, a good cadre of managers who will be able to manage this. We are seeing what is happening to Uganda Airlines. I think the issue of those cadres who believe that yes, this is the right thing for government to do are not yet there. So as we do all these things, it's very important that government, as part of the stimulus package, as part of reviving the economy, does a number of things that are going to ensure that there is sustainable growth of business in the country, and that business people are serious about what they are doing, not to take sim which they are going to reject, not take coffee which has reduced in quality. Vietnam took advantage, and it never used to produce coffee. It's now one of the largest producers of coffee because Uganda has messed up its coffee production. So yes, the stimulus is very important. This economy must get out of these problems that we have, but it is that small business person who is going to lead the growth. But that small business person needs to find a way in which he or she can sell what they produce and get good value out of it. Give the cotton farmer a higher price, you're going to see cotton being produced. Give the maize producer whatever, a higher price, they're going to produce maize. Not at some stage it is 100 shillings per kilo, at some stage it is 1,000 shillings per kilo. You can't have an economy moving like that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Honourable Bahati, can you respond to some of the issues that were raised so that we now begin, you know, really descending to finish in the next 10 minutes?
Well, I do agree with my teacher, Professor Barunya, that we need to continue realizing that we are running a free market economy, but led by the private sector. Government just remains the driver, but the private sector is the engine of our economy. So the interventions of government are mainly on policy and improving the environment to support the growth of the private sector. For example, the Private Sector Foundation was primarily formed to offer support to the private sector in terms of feasibility studies, in terms of analysis for markets, and want to continue to appeal to the Private Sector Foundation to play that primary role for which that you were created. At the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, we have put in place institutions ready to support the private sector. One of the things that the MTAC, a government institute that provides skills for the private businesses in entrepreneurship, in accessing these markets, in skills that help to develop your business. We have also put in place what we call the receipt system. What the innovative way of saying, if you are a farmer in Usoga, a farmer in Kabale or any of these places, once your products are ready, you have harvested them, planted them in the right way, using the right seedling, the right and we continue to sensitize our farmers. For example, one of the things I want to point out, if you look at Cafe Javas, Mandela's Cafe Javas is importing Irish potatoes from Kenya, but Kabale will grow Irish potatoes. Why is he not buying from Kabale? Because of the type of seedlings that we are planting, and want to resolve that. Because the markets want a certain type of product, planted and nurtured and harvested in a certain way, quality and quantity. So our role is to continue disseminating information that will help the business community to access the markets and the right markets with right quantities and right quality. So the stimulus we are giving, Prof, is a really support those, because we know at the end of the day, government not give all resources that is needed in the private sector, but what we can do is continue giving the environment in which the private sector can thrive, giving them the information that they need to know, giving them the skills, and creating an environment where they can access patient capital. And the UDC, UDB are some of the institutions we are putting in place. But at the end of the day, the invisible hand of demand and supply will continue to play an important role in this. So our business community, now is the time to take advantage of the markets we have in Europe, the markets we have in Africa, on the African continent. But to do that, you must do the right things. And government can only give you information, can put in place regulations to support you. Actually, Prof, the rules that we have in place are not to control the business community, the private sector, instead are there to support and facilitate the private sector. For example, the Accreditation Act, which we passed, is to ensure that when you produce your things here, you have an institution that gives you the standard to supply goods in America. Instead of America requesting you to accredit your products in America, you are able to accredit them here. The American government has been supporting us with over $400 million of some of the products in terms of drugs. But they are imported from America. Why? Because they are not accredited. The food and something in American institution which controls that. So those are the things that the government is engaged in to ensure that we facilitate. So we do not have laws that control. Maybe one of the laws that I really have been bashing over my life in Parliament has been the PPTA. And every time I attempt to make a big mark on it, I've always got some resistance. But it's one of the laws that hinders the growth of the business in Uganda. But I think that will work. But also the other issue, Charlse, is the BUBU policy. Why should government departments import furniture when we have people here who are producing furniture? Why do they import? We are having a reservation scheme to make sure that our businesses are supported by buying their import substitution and export promotion.
Okay.
Of strategy for our economy.
Thank you very much, Honourable. I think we need to wind up. Thanks a lot, Honourable. We need now to make our way forward, comments. Going forward, what do you see should be done in a minute and a half? Honourable, starting with you.
Well, I think going forward, I think all the different stakeholders need to do their job. And what I want to assure the viewers is Parliament, through the Trade Committee, we shall do our job, we shall make the necessary recommendations and send them to the floor of Parliament for debate, and hoping that the government will give us a positive response. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah?
I think what we need as a country is a comprehensive plan on mitigating the effects of COVID. This plan should cover all sectors, including business, education, health, and this plan should be presented and debated and approved by our Parliament as people's representatives. I think during the first phase, the government wished COVID away. yet the pandemic was still going on globally. So the knee-jerk interventions will not help the situation. If we didn't learn anything from the first phase, at least we need a 3 to 5 year plan on mitigating the effects of COVID in all sectors across board. So we need a comprehensive plan approved by Parliament, and the money should be appropriated to the Parliament, to the plan approved by Parliament. What individual ministries and the sectors are doing is really not helping us, and we must adjust and live in the new normal like all other countries are doing.
Okay, Francis?
Thanks very much, Charles. I'll step back a bit. Now for the business community and the citizens there, it's very, very, very important as a way forward for us to first of all ensure that we have protected our lives. So make sure that you comply with all the SOPs. For the sectors and the industries that have been opened, we've been opened or eased on condition. So it is actually like we are a candle in the wind. We have to protect and comply with all the directives that have been given. Otherwise, if we don't, that will be blown away and we won't be able to go and do business.
Thank you. Professor, but Professor, before you, there is someone who sent a message and said this is direct to Professor. He's called Otieno Julius from Entebbe. He says, thanks for inviting Professor Balonywa. He is very good. He's a very good replacement of the Dr. Gobi. He has articulated very well the real economics that works. I can't wait to have him another time. Kindly let him comment about NSSF midterm access as another stimulus. Your way forward.
NSSF midterm is wrong to me. First of all, the people you are giving the money are salary workers. They are not in business. You give them money to go and spend. And it's known that most of us who get this NSSF money spend it in 1 year, and after that we die. So if we are going to reduce the amount of money we are going to get at the end of the year, and NSSF money is supposed to be for the country to invest in various areas, but when you give it to these people who are saving it, I think there's a problem. But you know, policies are policies, debates are debates, and those decisions are taken. On the way ahead, I think there is need to look at short-term measures. What can we reap in terms of the low-hanging fruits? And to me, I said this is in agriculture, food production. And we have seasons. We have the coming season. What is the incentive for me to produce? The incentive for me to produce is a high price, which I'll be guaranteed, and the market. This is what government needs to look at. And in the next season, which is coming in March, we have enough time to plan for this. That this is where we need to give the farmer, the ordinary people, 70% of the population who are in agriculture, more income. And when you give them more income, they're going to stimulate demand for manufactured products. So we can plan that. For the rest of the economy, it's not easy yet to be able to plan and give incentives because we don't know where it's going. We are going to see more business failures. We are going to see, as technology comes up, new adoptions, technology, things changing very much. We're not sure yet. But the entrepreneur who, when business fails, must get up and do something else, is going to get up again and do business and succeed. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Professor. Honourable Minister, 1 minute. We have got to get out of this place.
Really, industry and industrialization of a country is going to play an important role in the growth of our economy and the growth of the businesses through facilitating industry to focus on import substitution and also export promotion. And I think that the industry should continue to focus on health and safety of their workers to change the ways that we have been doing business because the times have changed. Innovation, science, and technology are also going to be important as we move forward. So we want to thank you, Charles, for hosting us, and those who are continue to keep safe.
Thank you so much, Honourable Minister, and Honourable David Bahati, Minister of State in charge of Industry, formerly of Finance Planning. Thanks a lot to Professor Waiswa Balunywa, Principal of Makerere University Business School. Now the viewers have made my work easy, that they have invited you unofficially. I will only formalize the invitation and put it in writing. Thanks a lot, Francis Kisirinya, Acting Executive Director of the Private Sector Foundation, Uganda, and thanks a lot to Council Sarah Birete, Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. And finally, I want to thank you so much, Honourable Mpaka Mwine, Chairman of the Committee of Parliament on Trade, Industry and Tourism. We are looking up to your committee to give guidance, to give to provide oversight, especially where government is not putting the monies that you appropriate in the right places, and that oversight comes from that authority you have as the people's representative, and we are looking forward to that happening and for you undertaking that role. From behind the headlines, you know, a massive congratulations from to Chemutai. To Chemutai Peruth, who did us proud, flew our flag, the Ugandan flag at the 2020 Olympics, and thank you so much for making us all proud. The 3,000 steeplechase golden girl, and the first one in our life as Uganda for a lady. So we are really massively proud and excited, and we wait when you come back and shower you this side of the world. And to the entire team, of course, congratulations to all of you for what you're doing. But as we end, COVID still exists, and the lockdown was opened, was lifted rather last week on Friday. Partially as it is, I have moved downtown, especially yesterday, and it's crazy. People are not wearing masks. People are there. There is no social distancing, and when you go downtown, Nachivuvu area, Chikubo area, I passed Nachivuvu Muse area, that Kiseka place, I got scared, and we pray for the best for every Ugandan. But like the ministry has said, the technical people, it's only the tough economic pressures that have forced the relaxation of the lockdown, not anything near COVID going away. So let's keep the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, let's follow them. Let's wear our masks religiously to protect ourselves and our loved ones. Let's keep social distancing, and let's ensure that we reduce on contact as much as possible. But whenever you are not feeling very well, don't hesitate and delay. Just report, and you better rule it out that it's not COVID before something bad happens. We have lost so many people, we don't want to lose more needlessly. And of course, there is still a daily death report. So the disease is still here with us. Otherwise, God bless you all. God bless Uganda. Bye-bye.
Wake up to Good Morning Uganda, weekdays on UBC.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios, this is Good Morning Uganda.